So, welcome, Bridget, to the podcast. It's good to see you. Usually we're just talking on the phone.
Yes, it's great to see you, Dr. Deb.
I know. So it's like there's so much that I want you to share with our listeners, and not just listeners now, all of our lookers who are actually watching
Right.
us.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. And so it's been 2 years,
Yep.
almost 2 years since we did our first mini session.
Yep.
And I think I would love for you, because a lot of people, I think, wonder what happens when you actually are finished working in my program with me. Like, is it lasting? Does it help? Or do you just go back to your old ways? And we'll talk right now that you still are working with me in coaching, right? You have continued to hire me as a coach, but we do not talk about eating.
No, never.
Never, because that's really way in the background. And even it's funny because when we were talking about food and alcohol, we didn't talk about food and alcohol that much either. It was more all of the thoughts that were creating those actions, right?
Right.
So take all of us back to why you decided to do a mini session with me almost 2 years ago. Do you remember where you were? Because you're so far from that now. Do you remember?
I feel like a different person, but I remember I was a mess. I had a lot of changes in my life and stress and drama. One of my kids came out as transgender. I was processing. I had a heavy workload in my business. I run a business that I've run for a couple of years, and I was just spinning with overeating and over drinking. And those had always been struggles in my life, on and off, but I had them under control for a while. So I really couldn't figure out why this time I couldn't do it on my own. And so I sought out a podcast. I just checked weight loss podcasts, and yours came up, and for women in menopause. And I thought, how much more perfect. This speaks to me. I've got to start listening to this podcast. I binge listened to you, Dr. Deb. Yay, binge listened. I know that's a terrible metaphor for this.
No, it's great. Anyway. It's actually a great metaphor.
And I was so afraid to reach out to you for a mini session because I had listened to you for so long. I had listened to all of your podcasts, and it made perfect sense. And I knew that's what I needed to do. And I had done every other program on the planet in my lifetime. I've struggled with my weight my whole life. I had done Weight Watchers, everything. I was Weight Watchers lifetime member, all of it. Yeah. But listening to you, I knew, oh, this is really it. This is what it takes to do it for life, and not to yo-yo up and down the way I always had. And so it was really scary to have that first call with you. Not that I was afraid of you. I felt your loving presence. I felt like I knew you already.
Yeah.
Because you're so open and loving on your podcast, and I related to you on such a deep level.
Yeah.
But that first call is where I really had the opportunity to speak the truth about how much I was struggling and how I was not able to do it on my own, even though I knew everything. I knew it all up here. I'm smart. Yeah. All your listeners and all your clients are so smart. It has nothing to do with that. So I made that call, and that was it. And we started doing the work, and it was one of the, it was in a way some of the hardest work I've ever done, and for sure the most rewarding work I've ever done, and the most freeing and healing. And it allowed me to move into areas of my life and do things in my life that I never could have imagined, and to let things go that I thought were excuses to not be able to live a healthy, happy, full life. It's just miraculous when I think about it, really.
Wow. We could just stop right now.
Okay. That's pretty much it. There's so much more to it.
What I was going to say, what you said to me is you were scared.
Yeah.
Tell me, because I think a lot of people are. I think, what is it? Why is it so scary? Why was it so scary?
I think we know, Dr. Deb, that you are not going to let us lie to ourselves anymore. You're going to be a partner in uncovering the truth. in what's really going on in our minds,
Mm-hmm.
in our actions, and how it's all connected.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
How our thoughts are creating our feelings. And once you learn the tools that you have, you can't really deny what's happening anymore. You can't blame outside circumstances. You can't blame your upbringing. And you can talk about those things and reflect on them. And you're very empathetic about, how we've gotten to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
But there are no more excuses. If we really want to change and be healthy and happy and release the weight and release the overuse of alcohol and buffering with whatever it is that we're buffering with,
Mm-hmm.
you are the person who's going to partner with us to do it. So once you know that, it's a little scary to say, okay, I'm ready to do it. But it's the best thing you could ever do. You've got to, just like everything else worth anything in life, you have to push through the fear.
I love that. So it was scary because you were scared of the truth and scared of having to work and to uncover things that maybe you haven't wanted to look at. That stuff was scary to you.
Yes.
Got it.
As you know, I didn't even tell you things until months in.
I think that's really fascinating too, is that some of your deepest, darkest fears really didn't come out for a while, which is which I think is really interesting, because you were scared of finding your truth. And yet really that's exactly what you wanted to do.
Yes.
And I think what you're really saying that I think is good for everybody to hear is that, you do it in your own time.
Mm-hmm.
When you're ready, you're never going to find something out if you're not ready.
Right.
To find out.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so it's like, you told me things as you were ready to tell me. Right. It was a process. Yeah. It's not like I like you had a mini session and it's just like I just took you somewhere that you didn't want to go and told you things and scared you.
No.
Right. It wasn't like that at all. It was just
not
kind of like we opened something up for you a little bit and you could see a glimmer. Tell me where I'm wrong. Of the hope.
Yes. Absolutely. Exactly. I felt so much hope after that mini session. Yeah. I had barely told you anything about all that was going on in my life. I just wanted to work on cutting back on food and alcohol and buffering. And that's where it started. But I knew after that call that my life was going to change forever.
And you were right.
I knew it.
You were right. What do you know? When you think a thought, my life is going to change forever, the result is your life changes forever.
It does, right.
Anybody can use that thought. Anybody can use that thought when they're ready to get on a mini session with me, is if you can get off saying my life is going to change forever, you will create that result in a coaching with coaching.
Yes.
I love that. Okay. So now what I want to ask you, because this is one of my memories, is the reason that you were so desperate when you first called me, wasn't it after you came back from a trip from New York?
Yes.
Okay. So talk about that a little bit, because that talks about the problem with eating and drinking.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everyone watching can relate to noticing an escalation and buffering of some form. And so I was traveling. I still travel a lot for my business. Yeah. And I live in California. I was in New York, but I grew up in New York. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of comfort food, especially pizza, as you know.
Quote unquote comfort food.
So pizza, has been my go-to comfort food. And when I'm in New York, unlimited pizza and red wine with that pizza. So I just had a trip, and looking back, and I'm sure so many people can relate to how I was so high functioning. I mean, I went for a work trip and I did a great job with the work I was doing there, and I saw friends and I still did amazing things, but I felt out of control with eating so much pizza. And I would not eat the pizza for meals. I would go and tell myself I would eat a healthy salad at a restaurant, and then I would go for the pizza after, because
when you weren't even hungry.
Nope. The pizza was not fuel. The salad was fuel. And I would try to tell myself that I was going to stop there. And then I walk when I'm in New York City. So I would walk past every corner as a pizza place, right? So I could not make it back from the salad restaurant to the hotel without stopping for pizza. So I felt out of control. I had gained weight, and was also in starting menopause. So I really felt the old tricks and quick fixes that used to work for me did not work anymore. I would starve myself for a few days, and that used to work, which isn't healthy anyway. I've lost weight in the past, and I realized it was never really in healthy ways, and my mind wasn't in the right place, and therefore it wasn't sustainable. So so I called you I started listening to you out of desperation. And then and then when I had the mini session and shared my experience with the trip to New York, I had a lot of shame about it.
I know. I remember that. And so eating was one part of the problem, but there was also, like, we really dealt with alcohol and we dealt with food. And when we did, because everybody, they can go back and listen to our first podcast that we did after we finished the program.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you had said on that podcast is I really am comfortable with food. I totally understand, when I'm hungry and when I'm full and how to fuel eat. And I'm still working on the alcohol at that time. Right? So you want to say a little bit about the alcohol, because is that a problem for you?
Not anymore.
Right. So even from that first podcast, you have made even more progress, right?
Yeah.
Which is really good for people to see, is that once you have the tools and you know what to do, you keep progressing.
Yes.
Which is what you did.
Yeah.
But say a little bit, because I think there's a lot to be said about alcohol in general, but where were you in the alcohol realm, and how come you feel so in control now, and why did you feel so out of control before?
Yeah. So I had just gradually over time progressed to drinking probably 2 glasses of wine every night. And my mind, I realize now from all that you've taught me that I had created neural pathways in my brain that caused me to think I need alcohol to relax, right? And so I felt compelled to drink that glass of wine every night. It was as if my brain believed that I could not survive without it. The brain is so amazing at creating, if it fires together, it wires together. So I had really done a beautiful job of connecting those neural pathways of wine equals relaxation. Wine is your reward at the end of the day. You can't relax without wine. I believe that completely. And so any kind of program, I heard about programs, I had seen videos about stopping over drinking, and I thought, no way, I'm not an alcoholic. I've never been an alcoholic. I can drink 2 glasses of wine every night and be an incredibly high functioning, incredibly successful person professionally and personally. But that was becoming less and less true. And when I was honest with myself, I had to realize I felt more fuzzy in the morning when there were times when I didn't have any alcohol, and I felt better the next day. I had more energy.
So I want to interject for 1 minute, because this is really, really important for people to hear. Is part of the work that we did together was with really taking a lot of it out. Right.
Yes.
We were doing a lot of testing, taking flour out, taking sugar out, including alcohol in that. So you were starting to experience what it was like not to have this in your body, and you started recognizing some things.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Even though you could still drink, and you had a drink plan where sometimes you did, but you took a lot of it out. So you got to experience what it felt like not to drink.
Yes. Yes. In the beginning, you and I really used the drink plan protocol, and I wanted to go to parties and have my drinks, and you really helped me understand that was fine as long as I planned ahead of time using my prefrontal cortex. I'll have 2 drinks or whatever, and then kept my word to myself. You are in my head, Dr. Deb. Your voice is in my head every day, every week as I plan my week.
We're having such a good time together.
Yeah, we did. I know. And I would not like you for it at times, right? Because I love and like are 2 different things, right? Because I would be at that party, and I had promised myself that I would have 2 drinks or 1 drink, and I would stop because I had heard you tell me so many times and heard you say on the podcast, sweetheart, you can keep your word to yourself. Keep your word to yourself. Keep your word to yourself, just like you would your children, your most beloved. I hear your voice still. I'm like tearing up because I still hear it all the time. Because I do want to say I'm not perfect, and no one
Oh,
is.
you're not?
And so I still, no, I
Oh,
still
sorry.
sometimes
I
go to
thought
a
we were going to
party.
talk about how perfect you are.
No, isn't that crazy? Even after all this, I still sometimes go to a party and I want to keep drinking after whatever I plan. But your voice is a sweetheart. Of course you feel the urge. The urge is there, right? But I can sit with an urge. You taught me how to sit with an urge and how to love, how really loving myself is keeping my word to myself, not indulging and giving into the urge, right? So in the beginning, that was so much of the work. And I remember early on, you said, I want you to cut out alcohol. You didn't say I want you to. You had some way of gently dropping the idea that it might be interesting to cut out alcohol completely for 6 weeks. And when you first suggested it, I thought you were insane. I laughed. I said, there's no way I'm ever doing that. And at some point, as we progressed with the drink plan, and because they felt so great when I woke up those mornings and I had so much more energy for work and life, and I felt great. At some point, I kind of moved to where I'm now is just drinking occasionally on the weekend only, really. And so I kind of moved toward not doing it much at all during the week. And I thought, well, now it doesn't sound like such a crazy idea to cut it out entirely for 6 weeks. And that was the most transformative part of the process, really, because I basically had to go through every experience without alcohol, every kind of experience that I would have had with alcohol, without it, and see what that felt like, and sit with the urges and see that I could still enjoy whatever the experience was, everything from a musical concert to dinners with friends that we would always drink with, to a high school reunion, to, it seemed like everything fell in that 6 weeks, date nights with my husband, all of it.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, it was like, oh my gosh, I can have a great time. I can do all the same things. My life is amazing, even without the alcohol.
Right. And just so everybody knows, you were getting coached throughout this whole thing too. So
yes.
You were bringing back, the experiences of whatever that week had for you. And we could really look at the thoughts that were creating the urges so that you could really see them. And then you could really question, do I really need it? Am I really missing out on something? Because your brain's telling you you're missing out. You're not going to be able to do it. And I remember something so distinctly with you that with, well, maybe this needs to be, I'm going to just say this.
Say it, go for it.
I was just thinking, it's like, that when you went with your mom, when you used to go out to lunch.
Yes.
You said, that's the only time I have to drink.
Right. Yes.
Because it really was incremental how we did this, because in the beginning, there was no way you were giving up alcohol.
Right.
Like you go, we kept it kind of as joy eating and joy drinking, but there was no way I'll give up sugar and flour, but I'm not giving up alcohol. Yeah. Right. And so we just worked with it. Yeah. It's like you can work with anything. And we just slowly took your brain as it started being able to stop being so afraid.
Yes.
It started actually seeing things for you. Because of the way that you were changing your thinking, it was actually seeing things more clearly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So true. It's so true.
Right. And so now, 2 years later, how are you?
Well, it's so funny that you bring that up, because it goes really deep for me, because I was blaming the lunch with my mom, as like this, there's no time where I need to drink anymore. I can have a lovely lunch with my mom with or without wine, and have done both many, many, many times since we've been doing this work. But that was another thing I was pairing. We pair these things, and it's always the thought. The thought is, I have wine with my mom at lunch when we go to lunch. That was my thought that was creating the whole cycle and the whole model. But now I can either have wine or not have wine. Whatever I decide ahead of time makes sense for that day when I have lunch with my mom. And I have lunch with my mom all the time. But to be honest, for a while, I kind of avoided it. And to her, it's so unfair to her, because she couldn't care less whether I drink wine or not.
Which is interesting.
She just wants time with me, and I want time with her. I'm 51. I feel really lucky that my mom is still on the earth
Sure.
and is my best friend. And why would I allow something like this that was all just craziness in my own mind to get in the way of our time together,
Yeah.
And
And so, yeah, so now it's like the difference between using willpower, which means says in your mind is I can't drink,
right,
to
right.
I can take it or leave it.
Yeah,
Right. And when
exactly.
you can take or leave something,
Hmm.
there's no urge and there's no pull and there's no
Right,
willpower.
right, right.
And that's,
Exactly.
I think that's where you are with
Yeah.
food, with alcohol, with the whole
Yep.
thing now. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And I love, that's another phrase that's in my head all the time is I can take it or leave it. And you said that over and over, and I really didn't believe it. It took me so
You
long
did
to
not
believe.
believe that.
I thought I'll never be able to take it or
You
leave
said
it
that.
with
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah.
I can believe it with cake and cookies
Well,
and
no,
all the
you
other
couldn't
stuff.
believe that. And now, just to be fair, in the
That's true.
beginning,
In the very beginning, I was eating all kinds of things that I don't even think about anymore. Like you could put a piece of cake in front of me and I'm like, I don't want that. I'm not interested in that anymore. But when we started, if you put a piece of cake in front of me, I'm eating it. Yes, you're right. It's funny. I forget that because that happened more quickly for me. And I did the joy planning. I do remember there was a Mother's Day in there and I was like, I'm going to have a taste of all the desserts at the buffet. And I had one bite of 6 sugary sweets, each of the 6, so yeah, I went through that whole thing with that too.
yes. And so that's really important to show that it is a process.
Yes.
It's not like we have a call and everything changes. It's a process and you go through a lot of discomfort and a lot of failures.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Like I know that there were some
Yes.
times that when you got on the phone with me, that you felt so disappointed in yourself and almost like you didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because you ended up doing something you didn't want to do, or you overate or overdrank or something. But
Yes.
in hindsight, don't you think that those were some of your best learning experiences?
Yes. Your process of, what is it? Write about it and move on.
That's right. Learn and move on.
That was game changing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I still use it. To be honest, again, I'm not perfect. Every once in a while.
Oh, you're still not perfect?
No, every once
You keep saying that. I keep thinking you are.
I know. You can still be pretty darn thin and in great shape and kind of go off the wagon a tiny bit and then learn from it. I never knew that. I thought it was like all or nothing.
Yes.
And so I'm learning that I don't always stick to my highest, for myself. And I totally use that. Oh, what was going on there? Oh, I was thinking this, which caused me to feel this, which led to my action of making a choice that wasn't the choice I had planned ahead of time. Or I don't always plan ahead of time now because a lot of it comes so naturally now.
That's right.
So sometimes I get caught off guard by that. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't do any of that stuff for 4 months. And then all of a sudden something got triggered because I was thinking something or I was telling myself I couldn't be as relaxed or whatever the situation was. Mm-hmm. So I use that tool all the time in my mind, write about it, move on. And you and I did that work together after some just moments of being brought to my knees of doing things that I thought I was so past. I thought were things that I only did in the past, and coming to you and the compassion I felt for you and the compassion you taught me to feel for myself, that no matter what I had done, it was okay. There was no need to judge it. There was no need to feel shame. There was no need to be mean to myself. In fact, I needed to do the opposite. I needed to love myself through it and just be a learner and see what happened. What happened, sweetheart? Why? I always say sweetheart to myself. You taught me that.
I love it.
Sweetheart. When I can't sleep at night, sweetheart, it's time to sleep. You'll deal with everything tomorrow. Like I use that all the time. That's you in my head. And so when I would go off my plan or do something I felt really ashamed of, you taught me to bring that voice in right away of compassion, of curiosity, of let's look at what happened with love, just like you would if you were looking at something that one of your kids did, that was a mistake they made and they felt terrible about. You would have compassion. You would love them and hug them and kiss them. Like we have to do that for ourselves. And that's how we're able to move on. And then it doesn't happen again. You know, in the old days, if I slipped, that would just be the beginning of the spiral of out of control for months and months and years at times.
Yes. So what you're saying, which is really, really important for everybody to hear, is that you still slip.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the difference from what I'm hearing, because it happens, right?
Yeah.
But how do you bring yourself back and not get dramatic about it?
It's funny, but at this point, I actually get excited when it happens because
Say
I'm like,
more.
oh, I'm still learning. This is so cool. Like, how boring to be perfect, right? That would be so boring. It's like, oh, wow. You know, I'm still learning and growing, and I get a whole new day. Like, I get to start over and look at this and see what happened and make I'm so skilled now because of everything you've taught me and all that I've learned I did the life coach certification program.
Which we'll talk about.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't mean to, you know, but I learned so much about how to immediately shift back into student, learner, scholar. Oh, this is what happened, and this is why. Isn't that fascinating? And I'm taking the work deeper now. I'm learning new things about what happens in my brain. Right when these, if you want to call them slips, wouldn't even look at them as slips.
Yeah, right. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the way it is. And it doesn't, and what that means is that it gives you an opportunity to figure something out about yourself, learn more about yourself, and then bring yourself back, because in the end, you would rather fuel eat and just eat when you're hungry and stop. It's really what your preference is anyway, right?
It is. Yes. That's what blew me away too. It's like when you move away from the feeling of deprivation and I have to give up all these things, and you really start realizing, oh, it actually feels great and tastes great to eat healthy foods. And it's so much more, everything in life is so much more enjoyable.
So it's more like, I want this and I don't want that, right? Right. No big deal.
Never, I can't have that. I don't think that way anymore. It's, I want this, I don't want that. Exactly.
I love it. Okay. So where you are, so I'm taking it that because of that, this is how, so your weight stays pretty much the same, and you learn. First time ever, right?
Oh my gosh.
It is a miracle, isn't it? A little bit still. I mean, like,
I almost still can't believe it. When I get on the scale every day, I'm like, how could this even be happening again? It's like, it's real. Anyway.
And it's been a couple years. Yeah. And it's been a couple years. And so it's really good for people to see is that, you know, it's not about a diet plan. It's about a brain plan, right? It's about managing your mind. And all you're saying to me is, since you're not working with me about food and alcohol anymore, you're doing your own work with yourself, and you keep learning more and more about yourself because you're using the tools, and it's almost like you can't help it.
I can't help. Yeah, it's like they're ingrained in my brain now. It's like, oh, we did this. We go to write about it, move on. Oh, this happened. We go back to a plan. We go back to a drink plan for the party next week because we didn't, we weren't able to do it on the fly for the party last week. Yeah, it's just all in my head now.
Right. And so what I usually tell my clients as they're ending is that once you know what you know, you can't not know it.
Yes.
It's in your head.
Yeah. And once you've had the practice of doing it all over time, it just becomes a muscle. You've built the muscle.
Yeah. Yeah. So how has your life changed since we finished working? Because we are working together. I still work with you as life coaching.
Yes.
Right? Because you like to have a coach available just to help manage your mind. And of course, I still have a coach to help me manage my mind. So I encourage everybody that even when you feel like it's going good and you've got things working for you, your brain still needs management. And sometimes you just can't see it yourself.
Right.
That being said, how has your life changed since we've been working together, since you've learned how to manage your mind? Because I think that it becomes more life-changing, and I'm wondering how your life changed.
Oh my gosh. In every way. Okay, it's so hard to be brief, but I will do my best. I mean, the
I know.
first big thing that comes to mind is that so much time and energy is freed up. Realizing how much energy I was spending obsessing about food and alcohol and how much to drink, and oh, I drank too much again, and what am I going to do, and what am I going to eat, and oh no, I shouldn't have eaten that, and then also just the lack of energy from eating and drinking too much, and so being tired and not having that energy. And so once all that time and energy was freed up, wow. I mean, I have a business. I've had a business for many years as a consultant. I
That's
do
right.
a lot of corporate training. We do communication and public speaking and leadership training and a whole series of training programs. And I was also an executive coach. So I was doing one-on-one coaching with executives, and I knew all about that. But I thought, I've got to get certified as a life coach, life and weight coach. This is amazing. So
Right. So that's like almost the first thing that happened, right? Is that once you started managing your mind and getting your mind under control, you wanted to go and learn how to do it for other people, right?
Yes.
So you ended up going to the life coach school.
Yes.
Kind of concurrently as we were working, which is what I see a lot. And then from there, it's like, when I look at you, your business has skyrocketed.
Yes. Yes.
You're a certified life coach. You love coaching people.
Yes.
And I think that happens is when you make more room in your brain and then you learn all these things. It's like you just want to give it to other people, which is like so exciting for me, is that's what I'm passing on.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's the best feeling in the world. I love it so much. And for me, learning all those tools myself with you, and then learning how to use the tools as a coach, has deepened my ability to apply them in my own life.
Yes.
And I just steep myself in all of the lessons and all of the terminology, and I'm just as much using it on myself to coach myself all the time. And in our work together, in our continued coaching, and with my clients who I coach, I feel like all of it just reinforces it so much in my life. But I mean, everything changed as well. My relationships, my relationship with my parents, my husband, my kids, my friends. I have all my friends, I talk about you all the time. I talk about the life coach school all the time. I've gotten so many people involved and interested. And even my executive coaching clients, I've got them listening to your podcast and in some scholars. And, there's crossover with all of it. It's so valuable, all of it.
So for people who are watching this or listening, who are where you were 2 years ago, desperate, out of control, not knowing what to do, what would you say to them about either making a mini session or committing to, investing in themselves? What would you say to them when you know that they are where you were?
Yeah, I would say, please, please do it for yourself. Please do it. I promise you, I was just as afraid as you are, but I cannot tell you how much better my life is in every single way. You got to do it. You got to jump off the cliff. You got to call Dr. Deb. I mean, I'm sure you're listening to her podcast. You're part of her tribe, as I'm so proud to be, but you got to, for me, I had to do the one-on-one work, and I had to do the deep work. I needed someone to really push me further than I think I would have been able to push myself. So please do it for yourself. And I'm not saying this to advertise. I'm just saying it because when you've healed and you've seen how much harm you were doing to yourself and how it's so unnecessary, and you can manage your mind and you can rewire your mind, and you can enjoy your relationships and your life and everything, your work, you can be healthy and fit and thin and peaceful. You can have it all. Like, I swear And it's not a quick, easy fix. I won't lie about that. Like I think Dr. Deb, one thing I also remember is you say you have to go through the river of misery. You do have to go through the hard work of going inside your brain and changing things in there and sitting with the urges and sitting with the discomfort. But now looking back after like 2 years of, well, I guess a year and a half of being free of all that, oh my gosh, the time period where it was so hard and I had to invest in working through it seems like nothing, because now I've got this for the rest of my life. You have to do it, people. Do it, please.
All right, calm down.
Because not because I'm selling this program, it's because it'll make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. Because for everyone who's watching, if you do it, I know that the ripple effect will be huge, that your whole family, community, wherever you are in the world will be impacted by you doing this work to become the version of yourself that you really have the potential to be.
Oh, right. Well, Bridget, I could have you go on and on and on. But I just want to thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself today and making me proud, and so happy that this is what I get to do in my life, and so happy for you that you're going to do the exact same thing in your life. Thank you, Bridget, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I could not possibly be more grateful for you. My heart is just filled with gratitude for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.